Welcome to COVID-19 Tough Decision for Business Owners. This is our 8th in a series of bi-weekly webinars that we started 4 weeks ago now. And I am Hilda Gann. I'll be your presenter, and my company's name is People Bright Consulting. We started this webinar series because we wanted to answer a need. I'm a businesswoman, and I've been a serial entrepreneur, and I thought that there was so much change going on, not just from COVID-19, but from government legislation. And our team wanted to help managers, business owners, and HR professionals to really understand what's going on, to think about what they need to do, and to provide information, tips, and strategies to help you with sometimes the tough decisions that you're making almost on a weekly basis, if not sometimes a daily basis. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am the founder and president of People Bright Consulting, and I'm the creator of a concept and a framework called Connect with RevUp. I am an award-winning work culture specialist. My husband and I had our own engineering company, and we grew that company from 2 people to 125 employees across Canada, 7 offices. And we created a special place to work. It's an engineering firm, and we wanted people to feel challenged and motivated in what they do and really feel connected with the company and with each other. And we were recognized as one of the best workplaces in Canada, top 10 twice. So from that experience, I decided to start my own company when we sold ours and created People Bright to help companies be that best version of themselves, where people are an asset. I do have a background in healthcare, engineering, IT, and human resources. So before we get started with the questions, I really wanted to kind of make you more aware of some of the changes that have been happening. And one of the key things is the changes to the Canadian Emergency Bank Account. The payroll change yesterday literally went from 50,000 to 1.5 million down to 20,000. So that makes more business owners more eligible than they were under the old criteria. And then there's a new Canadian Emergency Commercial, my screen is truncated here, commercial rent assistance program. Again, that just got announced yesterday. And essentially what it is being able to have a loan, and part of it will be forgivable, that will help you cover the costs of your rent for April, May, and June. And the last one is temporary salary top-ups for low-income essential workers. And this is a top-up for those that are getting less than $2,500 a month, and as a result of that, they are going to have a top-up, and they have to be essential workers. They have to be defined as essential workers, not for all employees. So we're going to have an open forum. I just want to remind you of some of the questions that you can pose to me and to the group. And I encourage the group, if you have experiences or have already started to apply for some of this, that you share some of that experience, because I think it'll help all of us. So the 4 points I really wanted to highlight before we get into the open forum period is wage subsidies. So there is that 75% wage subsidy. There's a 10% wage subsidy. And then there's the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit of $500 a week. I'm not going to go into details. I just want the screen here to remind you of some of the things you may be thinking about or have questions on. There's the access to credit. There's that $40,000 bank loan that is forgivable that is available until December 2021. So that's 2022. And if you've paid it off, $10,000 is forgivable as a loan. And again, that got lowered to $20,000 income, which is really, really helpful and has opened the doors to other people that were not eligible prior to the change. And then there's the B cap, which gives working capital loans to large firms. And this is through BDC and EDC, Export Development Canada and Business Development Canada. And you again apply through the banks. There's a host of employee and non-employee questions you might have about the EI benefits for sick and COVID-19 reasons. There's, questions you might have about full-time, part-time, seasonal, temporary, and contract workers. There's layoffs, work share, returning people to work questions you might have, contracts and agreements. And the last kind of bucket would be taxes, tax deferrals, and other items. So deferring of GST and HST and import taxes, deferring our income tax payment, although the filing still occurs on June 1st, and then provincial, in Ontario, the employee health tax. So I want to open it up for questions if you have any, and this is our chance to pose any questions that you have. So good morning and welcome. So if you're talking, please remember to unmute yourself.
And for those who want to anonymously send out a question, you can feel free to send it to me, Jenny Ho, in the chat privately.
Anybody have a question?
We have one here.
Sure.
What's the difference between the emergency wage subsidy and the temporary wage subsidy? Who can apply to which?
Okay, so that's a good question. The history of the wage subsidy was the initial announcement the government made was for a 10% wage subsidy, but then it changed to a 75% wage subsidy. So the way that works is that those people that are eligible for the wage subsidy can apply to that. If you're not eligible for the emergency wage subsidy, then you would apply to the 10%. The 10% can apply to any organization, and that would be, any people that have employees, and that would be without application, whereas the 75% emergency wage subsidy needs to be, you need to submit for that. The details are not final yet, and the actual application for it is still not here yet. So we're waiting for the government to provide that information for us. But so I can't give you that many details on it because it's still kind of finalizing. But you need to make, sometimes I get these two mixed up. Okay, here's my notes. So the 75% runs from March the 15th to June the 6th, and it is for a maximum of $847 per week. So the criteria is, it's based on your sales, like your revenue. If in the month of March, because the March was only half the month because COVID really started to surface around the 15th, if your revenues drop by 15% from year over year, from March 2019 to March 2020, you're eligible. Or there's another method you can use, is you can take the average of January and February of 2020, and if there was a drop of 15% in March, you would be eligible. Subsequent periods would be April and May would be 30%. So this wage subsidy is only good for March, April, and May. Is there any other questions? Again, the application is still not available yet. You do need to use your Canada Revenue Agency account number. So if you have not registered online, you'll need to do that, and they give you a password. That password is actually mailed to you. So if you haven't already done that and you are eligible, that's what you would do. some people who have bookkeepers, myself, for example, have actually already done the temporary wage subsidy. For the month of March, I got my 10% for half of the period of time. And then when I go to apply for the emergency wage subsidy, I will then not submit for 75%. I'll only submit for 65%. Does that help you? Do you need to add a little bit more to that question? And feel free to actually unmute yourself and have a dialogue with me. So you can just use the chat or you can dialogue.
Right. Rex has a question.
Sure.
Can you start the CRB, so 16 times $500 in May?
So, start the question again.
Can you start CERB, CRB, 16 times $500 in May?
Oh, good question. I believe that the CERB, I don't know, you could start it probably. It's just when it's when it's eligible through, because it only runs from March 15th to June the 6th. So you could start it for the 1st of May, but you'd only get the period from May to June the 6th, right? So the answer is yes, you can, and you would only get the benefit until the benefit period ends.
Okay, we have another question. If I terminated someone at the beginning of COVID-19, but I now want to bring them back as a staff member, what should I do?
So did you actually terminate them or lay them off? That would be my
I think
for
here
clarity.
it says terminated.
Okay, so if you actually terminated them and you want to bring them back, then it's a rehire, not a new hire, but it's a rehire. And I would recommend that you write a new agreement with them and bring them back. And then if you terminated them, they were on EI, they would have been collecting EI. And then when they come back, they would, when they reply on the card, you know, are you working? They would say, yes, I have a job again. Do you need more comment on this? Because in my head, I'm having a few questions of thinking what the scenario will be. I would recommend that when people bring people back, they should have an agreement now that inserts the temporary layoff in it. If you're in the province of Ontario, when we lay somebody off and we have a provision in our agreement with them that gives temporary layoff, we're okay. But like 95% of companies, they did not have this temporary layoff provision. And according to the Ontario government, that is not legal. And if you laid somebody off without that provision, then in essence, it could be deemed to be constructive dismissal. And a person could then file and say, well, you laid me off. It was as good as if you terminated me because you changed my work agreement. You changed the amount of work that I was doing. So therefore you changed my role, my agreement. Now the governments are thinking, well, not the governments are thinking, lawyers are thinking that if somebody came to you and said, you know, I'm filing for constructive dismissal and I want you to pay me X, Y, Z for that, that the courts of law may say, this was unusual circumstances and it was beyond the control of the employer. So we're going to dismiss this case, or we're going to side in favor of the employer. Employment lawyers and HR decision makers are thinking, this is such an unusual circumstance. We think the government hopefully will create some legislation to say that during this COVID-19 crisis, that if anybody is applying to a constructive dismissal situation, that we would deem that to be not applicable, and we would protect that. And it would be the Ontario government that does this, because it's the Ontario government's legislation that says that if you do not have a provision, then that's not legal.
Right. This person has a follow-up question.
Sure.
What if I want to bring them back not as a full-time staff, as this person was, but as part of a work share program or like a part-time worker first?
Okay. So the work share program is I know your terminology is part-time worker, but essentially all the staff became part-time in that they're going to work. Let's use a scenario for work share where it's 3 days that they're working and 2 days they're not working. So yeah, I understand what you mean when you're saying part-time. So let me just get that part done, and then we'll talk about the agreement that you should make. So in work share, they work 3 days, they're off for 2 days. In those 2 days, then the government would pay them EI benefits equivalent of what they would make as an EI person for 2 days, okay? So it's not full salary, of course, but it would be full salary for the first 3 days that you take them on, and then EI, the equivalent of 40% of their full amount that they would have gotten. So when you do a work share, everybody has to sign an agreement to agree to the work share situation, and there's an application that they form. So what I would recommend is that you have a dialogue like with that person saying, hey, you know, our company is now has applied for a work share program. I'd love to bring you back, and here is the agreement that you would sign. So you would basically you would need to set up the work share agreement with him, hire him first, I guess, rehire him first. And in the letter, I would state that, you know, you are returning as an employee during our work share program, and then stipulate what that work share is. Yeah, how do you classify him as a full-time on a work share or a part-time person? I might not even classify them, but just say that they would be coming back to work 3 days full-time, and then 2 days as part of the work share program. But if they are doing that, then they would be full-time. So I'm not exactly sure what you mean by part-time then. If they're part of that work share and their equivalency is like a full-time, then you might classify them as a full-time. But it depends on how you work the agreement. And I'm certainly happy to talk to you about how I might be able to help you do that if you need help specifically with the agreement that you have or the approach that you might take. I think it's always important during this time is to build trust and build a solid relationship, because this is what's going to happen as we move forward, that people will remember how you treated them. If you treated them well, if you made them feel respected and valued, if you made them feel as if you cared about them as an individual, you cared about them in their family situation, you know, or however, if they're paying student loans or if they've got, you know, 5 in the family, just knowing that you cared about them is going to help in the long run. And any disagreements or concerns they might have, if you cared about them, the risk to you of being, you know, sued for wrongful dismissal, or I'm quitting as soon as I get another job because they treated me like crap, those will dissipate because of the care that you had. So if you're looking at the situation, think of it from a long-term perspective and trying to create that goodwill. So again, 2 things: the agreement that you have, the approach that you take, and that conversation that you have with this person. Think in your mind, how is the best way to approach it with this person I'm thinking of bringing back? If you've already had good relationships and you terminated them in a way that you know they understood it was regrettable, but it had to happen. When people feel that they're in it as a team, you know, that you care about them as an individual, but you also help them understand that this is a business. And if I don't make these tough decisions, we're not going to have a business to come back to. And so your idea of this work share program now is that we're trying to create a business that we have to come back to. I'd love to see you come back. And here's the opportunity. Sometimes if you do the finances for them too, when you come back now, instead of getting this much money in EI, you will have this much money, and we're going to be working this in this work share program for, you know, another 3 months. And so the dollars and cents make sense to them to come back. Hopefully that answers. Any other follow-up question to that?
No, not yet.
Okay.
If anyone has any more questions, they can feel free to send it to me privately, or I put it into the chat to everyone.
Or unmute yourself and have the conversation. I think one of the difficult, if there's not, interrupt me, Jenny, if there is a question. One of the difficult things is that a lot of people had to lay people off. They may not have written letters, which they probably should have, to confirm that there was a layoff, something that they can put in the file. But it is what it is. You do what you need to do. And I think the good thing about right now is that all of a sudden overnight, COVID-19 made us all change and be changed in a way that was really thrust upon us. So as a result of that, people have learned to be adaptable and flexible. And so if we don't get it right, people are more forgiving right now. They are more forgiving. For some people, that may be a little bit more stressful than for others. If you're a person that is okay with change, probably not too bad. If you thrive on change, you're probably really excited right now. But if you're one of those people, and think about your staff, if they're the ones that, you know, love their routine, they like to come to work, they like to put in their hours, they like to go home, and they like to know that lunch is today at 12 o'clock every day. Those people are the ones that are finding the change the hardest, because even the everyday routines are disrupted. And so the big catastrophic changes are even more stressful for them. So I think it's important that you approach people in a way that creates those relationships and moves forward to build a stronger work culture, especially as we return to what I'll call the new normal. So let's go back to the scenario of people laying off people. And then now the government's brought in the 75% emergency subsidy, and they keep making it easier and easier to think about bringing back people to work. So here's the thing is, what if you bring somebody back to work and they say, I'm not interested, I'm happy, I got more time with my family, and you know, I'm happy living with the income that I'm living with EI. So there is an interesting scenario here. You laid them off, and in Ontario, there is that if you didn't have it in your agreement contract, then this person could consider constructive dismissal. Now you're bringing me back to work, and I'm saying to you, thank you, you know, that's great. That's one scenario. But then there's the other scenario of thinking, no, I'm not interested in coming back to work. Technically, when a person refuses to return from a layoff, then they are deemed to be abandoning their work, i.e., I'm quitting, I'm terminating. So if they do so, they terminate, and you do not owe them any termination pay, you do not owe them any severance pay. But remember, in Ontario, if you don't have that agreement, you actually constructively dismiss them. So I'd be cautious about how you kind of present the, you know, refusal. If you don't come back, I'm terminating you. Have that discussion. They may be in a situation where they're working, their children are at home in daycare. And remember, the government said nobody should lose their job because of COVID-19. And one of the provisions of COVID-19 was that you are considered to be, you know, affected by COVID-19 if you have to take care of children or elderly as a result of COVID-19. So, and then that is job protected. So you can't terminate somebody for those reasons. So don't automatically just say, well, if you're not coming back to work, you're laying off. Have that dialogue. Maybe you don't need to bring everybody back to work. Maybe you only need 60% of your workforce. So those that want to stay off and either collect the CRB or collect EI, let them do that. Have that discussion. But again, don't be heavy-handed. The other thing is, what if people are mentally stressed by all this? Then you may also suggest that they stay off for EI sick benefit purposes because it is stressful to them. So those are just some scenarios to think about as you're trying to return people to work. If you do return people to work, I would suggest that you again put something in writing to officially say that, as of April 22nd, staff we are recalling everybody back from the layoff that we implemented on March 15th. Like, put dates to it. So again, that goes into the employee's file and you have a record of what transpired. And I would have one-to-one conversations about people's return to leave from layoff to return to work. And then be, as I said, flexible with the decision that is come. Make it kind of a mutual understanding, because we are walking on kind of uncharted waters, but also difficult to see what's going to happen afterwards in terms of law. In my history, again, my husband and I owned our own engineering company for 12, 13 years. I can't remember now. It was so long ago. 13 years. And we hired quite a few people. When you think you have 125 employees and you keep growing 20% every year, in all that time, there were probably 3 situations where the person who was terminated chose to have a lawyer, and we had to settle the dispute through the lawyers. So that's not a lot, and I would argue that most of you, unless you're really created such ill will that you put yourself in higher risk, most people don't tend to sue, and if they do, it's because they feel they were very wronged. And even when you get it right, there'll be that small percentage that will sue you no matter what. I think of all those 3 people, one of them really blindsided me. I did not expect it from them. We handled it in a way that we felt was respectful, but people are people. You can't predict what they're going to do or how they're going to do things, so you'll get surprises. Hopefully that's a bit of advice for you that you might not have thought about. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have one here.
Okay.
So given the current financial situation and the government subsidies available for student programs versus hiring experienced workers, what is your opinion about hiring summer students right now? Okay.
So first of all, I have to say, if you're unionized, you have to follow your union rules. But if you're not unionized, you can, by all means, hire students. I think one of the things you need to be thinking about is that if you bring on a student and somebody is still not being hired, returning to work, they're going to say, so why did you do that? Why didn't you give me that opportunity? So I'll just put that in as one of those things that you need to analyze when you do that. To me, it is an amazing win-win opportunity. And the reason I say that is that you get to hire somebody. Now, in the government briefing, I read 75%, but somewhere else I heard up to 100% subsidy for hiring a student. And now they changed the word student to, I'll call it a young adult, ages 15 to 30. So they don't have to be a student. They just have to be a young adult. And when you bring them, think of it as having today's fresh mind in a specialized area. So perhaps you want to have somebody who is coming to work for you that will help you with getting into social media. Maybe that's not your forte. Imagine hiring somebody who's got state-of-the-art learning and has grown up with social media as if it was just an average, normal, everyday thing. That is a big benefit for you. And the government subsidized 75% of that salary. And that salary is usually on the lower end of the scale. So that's why I say it's a great win-win situation. Uh, but make sure when you hire somebody that is that bright light. One of the things I talk about when I do training is I talk about when you hire people, there are stars and then there are your solid citizens. And in the early part of our company, we kind of would assess whether this person's going to stay for 2 to 3 years, because you don't really want a revolving door of people. And you can sometimes tell that this person is very ambitious and wants to make, being a project manager in the shortest time possible, and we're just a stepping stone. And we tended not to hire the superstars, but along the way we realized that sometimes hiring a star is better than hiring the solid citizen person. Because think of it, if you had somebody who was a solid citizen that did the work and followed things, and it did a good performance, but not stellar, but good performance over 5 years, you have somebody who's providing you with steady, reliable, good work. But if you hired a star, and a star only stayed for 2 years, but during that star's time, they got fully engaged in the company. They were part of the social committee that helped move the extracurricular activities that your organization would have. And a committee, you might not have a committee, but they might just be that one person that moves the bar, or you ask them to do something, and then they help you launch your social media program. Sometimes it's better to hire these people because in those 2 years, they might have made such significant improvements to your company that you were thankful that you had them for even the 2 years. So I think the summer program is like that. You can bring in somebody with an expertise area that you don't have within your staff, and they'll be here, they'll make some big differences that you can move on. So I think that's a good thing. And then there are other things, just some of you might be in a situation where you need people to help deliver. If you're in a product line business, you need people to help with sorting, shipping, handling. So that's, again, something that you can have, and it will really help you because of the subsidy. And if you have to explain that to some of your staff that didn't get hired, you'd say, this was something that will keep our company going longer because we were able to take advantage of government funding. And when I, as a business owner, am looking at something, I'm looking at the overall picture. So you need to make that decision, but I would certainly think about what you're doing with the people that are not coming back to work and how you're managing that conversation. If you've got staff, you should be connecting with them either through a general email or at least a call to them. The general email might be once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever that comfort level, or if there's news or not. The call might be once every 2 weeks, just to say, how are things going? How's the family? Do you have any questions? Let me give you a mini update of where we're at with the company or the business. Any other questions or a follow-up to that? Again, the information was just announced on Thursday, so we'll have to wait and see what that all entails, because they talked about the students, they called them students, but again, it's anyone under 30, as well as they also talked about now having the ability to apply for CERB, even if you were part-time, even if you, for business owners, the CERB now was allowing you to make up to $1,000. I think it's $1,000 a month, and that is so helpful, because I think all of us who are business owners are not working, but then we're not making money that much. And if you made $500, then all of a sudden you're not eligible for CERB. So here's the thing, is that now you can make more than, like, you can make that $1,000 a month and then still be able to work. And I think that's a good thing for people who hire contract people. So I have some people who are in the, like the physiotherapy and massage therapy kind of business, and they're working part-time on contract for a company. And then the person says, hey, I want to bring you back. And they say, no, I don't want to, affect my EI benefits or my CERB. It's better for me not to work for you and get my $500 a week than to work for you and find that I'm not eligible. So now you are eligible. You can come back to work for somebody, just so long as you're making less than that criteria. So that piece of news that came out this week was really also helpful. Any other questions?
I don't have any more here.
Okay. I'm just going to carry on with a couple of more things, and then if people have questions, continue to put them in the chat line. So I wanted to share with you some of the upcoming seminars, webinars that we are going to be doing. On next Wednesday, I'm going to do Business Survival 2.0. So what I'm doing is I'm taking all of the different concepts that, the wage subsidy, the workflow of people, the grants, the loans and grants, and I'm putting that together and to give you a kind of an idea of what does that all mean to business owners. Which ones make sense for me, which ones don't make sense. So it's going to be a way of looking at that, because when we come out of this, however long it takes, it's going to be something that you want to think about being able to come out and build. Statistics show that those people that just stop doing things and don't continue to market will actually come out of this difficult situation slower out of the gate and not be able to recoup where they were after. Those people that are preparing themselves and creating a strong foundation will be able to really launch, and a year or two later the growth of their trajectory is better than those that just really stayed back and didn't do much and stayed conservative during this very, very difficult time. And then on the Friday, I will do some case studies giving examples of scenarios to help people understand how to apply it, and then also have an open forum. The following weeks, 11, 12, and 13 episodes, I'm going to talk about effective people management strategies. How do you relate to your clients? How do you relate to your employees? How do you have those, what I'll call difficult conversations, like the one where the person said, I'm thinking of bringing somebody back to work that I terminated. Maybe that's a difficult conversation. Maybe that's something you've been repeating in your mind. How am I going to say, how will they react? So that's what I'm going to do on that Wednesday. And then following on the Friday, I'll do a couple of case studies and open forum again. And then on the May 6th session, I have a guest speaker, Tracy Bissett. She's a financial fitness expert. And so she's going to talk about some aspect related to that. We'll know closer to the time because every week changes. So what we think we're going to talk about will evolve a little bit. So I'll have that nailed down in the next couple of weeks. So I would like to thank you. Are there any other questions, Jenny?
Yeah, Rex has a follow-up question.
Sure.
Does the employee have to reapply every 4 weeks for CERB?
So that's kind of changed a couple of times. My understanding is that once they apply, they have to report, but they don't have to apply again. Originally, they were supposed to apply every month, but my understanding now is you apply and then you just verify that this is still applicable. You still have to follow those guidelines of the revenue part of it. But again, it's a reporting mechanism rather than a full application. Okay, So again, I'd like to thank people on the call. If you do need more advice and want to talk more in depth with me, I do offer a free 30-minute strategy call, and my invite to my calendar is here. You will be getting an email that will give you a copy of the slides as well as a YouTube link on this presentation today. And then the other thing is some people actually feel they need more than just the strategy call. We were thinking, how can we help? As I think you can understand, I do have a wealth of knowledge, and having run my own business, I really understand what it takes to be a business owner, what it takes to run a business, what it takes to be an HR manager, and I combine all that. So one of the things we want to do at People Bright is to really help business owners, particularly those and HR decision makers who really need a second opinion or don't know enough about what all of this means. You know, they maybe never had many HR issues, and all of a sudden they're expected to learn how to understand these changes and the implications. And that's where my expertise comes in. You know, having over 25 years as a business owner and as an HR specialist, I understand what a decision for today means down the line. You know, think of me as a chess master. You know, I've practiced the chess game long enough to understand that this move could result in this move three moves later. So what I've decided to do is we have an HR on-call service for ongoing clients. You know, they usually do it for 3, 6, 9 months, even a year. So during this COVID time, we're actually offering purchases of packages for 2-hour package, which you can use, you know, if it takes you four sessions, talks, or 10 talks, or just one, that's 2 hours that we kind of add the time up. And for 2 hours, I'm doing it at half price for $300 to have that one-on-one call with me or a member of my team. If you think you might need 4 hours worth of time over the next 6 weeks from the date of purchase, then you might be interested in option 2, which is $550, and that's a $1,200 value. So this will be part of the slides, and if you're interested in that, I'm happy to have you to use our knowledge to help you through these very, very difficult times. Are there any last minute questions, Jenny?
Nope, not so far yet.
Okay, as part of the slides, we do have some links to various websites for you. And I'd like to thank you then for joining us today. And we are just at the 10:45. Have a safe and happy weekend. If you're interested, particularly in the business survival, I think you'd find it very, very interesting, because that really will help you kind of think about these, not in that they're separate entities, but together as a business strategy. So be safe, have a good weekend, and recharge yourself. It's very important that in all the stresses of all of our decision making, that you balance your life with the work and keep that stress level at a point where you are managing it well. Thank you. Bye.